A new study points out the power of a processed food to reduce your mortality by up to 20%. You eat this food occasionally, but after watching this video, you'll eat it every day. Pay attention as we are facing the main and most evidenced anti-aging food in the world, and we have been using it for thousands of years. Indeed, we are talking about olive oil, and today we are going to answer the following questions. Why does it make you get sick less? How does it extend your life expectancy? And finally, what to do if you need to lose fat but want to benefit from it. Regularly incorporating olive oil into the diet has become a delicate issue. The price of olive oil has skyrocketed in recent months, at least in Spain. The fact that it has become so expensive is a real shame, as we are talking about one of the few foods that truly has evidence to make you age well. You can incorporate it into your diet in different ways. Tell me in the comments which one you prefer. In a salad dressing, which would be the most widespread use. The classic dressing of vinegar, lemon, salt, pepper, and olive oil. Also with bread. It's a very widespread combination in Spain, but from a health perspective I like it less, as the combination of both will make us consume more bread and more oil. Or for sautéing and cooking vegetables, meat or fish. Also as an addition to cooked pasta or when making homemade hummus. Or as a base for homemade sauces like pesto. How do I personally incorporate it? I add a large spoonful to my daily shake, but also use it in other ways when the opportunity arises. This way I make sure I never forget, and that I at least include 10 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil daily. Because in order to benefit from the functional effects of a food, it's not enough to take it sporadically, which is what we usually do. This is equivalent to being prescribed a drug and taking it when it suits you or when you happen to remember. To notice the beneficial effects of a nutraceutical of a functional food, regular consumption is required. Now let's look at the study in question, published in May of 2024. In it, they studied nearly 23,000 Italian adults with an average age of 55 years and gender parity who live in southern Italy. They were followed for an average time of 13.1 years, which is not bad at all. It's quite a good follow-up. What they studied was the degree of olive oil consumption they had, and the consumption of olive oil was divided into 5 categories. Below 15 grams, from 15 to 20 grams, from 20 to 25, from 25 to 30 or above 30. Confounding variables like age, sex, caloric intake, education, health history, physical activity, and diet were accounted for. What were the results? The most striking conclusion of the study is that those who consumed the most olive oil died the least. How much less? 20% less. They also reduced mortality from other causes, such as cardiovascular events like heart attacks or strokes, by 1/4. Cancer by 23%. In other words, in light of this study, olive oil significantly reduces the risk of dying from what is most likely to kill you here in the West. Other studies, like this 2022 meta-analysis, reach the same conclusion. A higher consumption of olive oil reduces deaths from cardiovascular causes by 16% and mortality from any cause by 11%. That is, we are facing one of the very few foods with enough evidence to recommend it as a factor enhancing good aging. This is significant, as very few specific foods can make this claim. But why does it make you die less? What does olive oil have? The most studied and known reasons are an improvement in your analytics, reducing low-density lipoprotein and increasing high-density lipoprotein. This is due to its predominance of MUFAs, monounsaturated fatty acids, with oleic acid being the main one. What is oleic acid used for? In the brain, oleic acid is a major component of membrane phospholipids, which give fluidity to the membrane. It is also very abundant in the myelin sheaths of your neurons and also has a signaling role, reducing inflammatory signals or controlling apoptotic signals in the cell, for example. But olive oil doesn't always lower low-density lipoprotein. It does when we replace other things with it, for example, calories from saturated fats, butter, or coconut oil, or also when we replace refined carbohydrates with olive oil. This applies to all foods in nutrition. Something does not improve or worsen health by itself. We need a comparator. Nutella can be extremely healthy if we compare it to bat feces. Much more about low-density lipoprotein cholesterol in this wonderful episode with cardiologist Dr. Avalon. Also wonderful, it lowers blood pressure. This effect is mainly achieved due to phenolic compounds. There are many, but mainly tyrosol, hydroxytyrosol, and oleuropein. These molecules promote the formation of nitric oxide in the vessels, causing them to dilate and lowering blood pressure. It also improves insulin sensitivity. The AOV improves insulin sensitivity and fasting glucose levels, and we know this. It's not a very big effect, but it's an important one. In a healthy person, it may not be relevant, but in someone pre-diabetic or with type 2 diabetes, it is. In this study, type 2 diabetics experienced an average reduction of 8 mg/dl in fasting glucose with AOV. As I say, it's not much, but watch out, an average of 8 milligrams per deciliter. It also lowers cancer risk. We know much less about this relationship. We really don't know how. Needless to say, cancer can kill you. In this study, those who consumed more olive oil had a 31% lower risk of cancer compared to those who consumed less. It most protected against breast, gastrointestinal, and urinary tract cancers. But we return to the same point mechanistically. Polyphenols act as sweepers of reactive oxygen species that can potentially damage deoxyribonucleic acid, which is why it happens. And damaged deoxyribonucleic acid is the first step in the formation of a malignant tumor. On the other hand, improving the metabolic environment will always help to have an environment less prone to developing malignancies. This is the ultimate reason why exercising and maintaining a good percentage of body fat prevents the onset of cancer. I remind you of that video about cancer and exercise that you really enjoyed. And we finish with the million-dollar question. Does it increase weight due to its high caloric content? Is that the main concern about olive oil? It will cause weight gain. Fat has nearly 10 calories per gram, with a single 10-gram tablespoon providing around 100 calories. In the study in question, those who had the least risk of getting sick consumed 30 grams or more, that is 300 or more calories from olive oil. And if we only consider the energy aspect of the oil, it would clearly be a food to avoid for people who want to lose fat. Some nutritionists and professionals continue to restrict it for people wanting to lose fat. Avocado or nuts would also be. This is a clear mistake, as both evidence and my clinical experience have demonstrated. As I've told you, olive oil is a functional food that improves your metabolism. It's very satisfying, has anti-inflammatory capacity, and in every study it's associated with a lower risk of type 2 diabetes and even a lower risk of obesity. In fact, clinical trials like this one clearly define that in the context of a low-calorie diet, giving up to 25 milliliters of olive oil in the morning compared to soybean oil not only does not hinder fat loss but accelerates it. Looking at physiological mechanisms, this makes sense, it's plausible, as oleic acid can inhibit new lipogenesis in the liver and promote fat oxidation when the overall caloric intake allows it. And obviously, if you're able to consume 100 milliliters of olive oil daily, the most likely outcome is that you'll gain fat mass because the calories are there. But this is usually not the case. This is not a realistic scenario. People don't get up from their office and go for 50 milliliters of olive oil to drink it. It doesn't work like that. My experience is that, being so satiating, olive oil displaces the consumption of other less healthy foods, and that most patients do not tend to increase the total daily caloric intake much when they incorporate olive oil into their diet regularly. Obviously, there is context and there are significant obesities where quantities have to be restricted, of course. But olive oil is one of the few foods that I usually prescribe to most of my patients. Finally, I would like to make a call to any olive oil expert, extending my invitation to do an episode of the in-person video podcast Better Than Yesterday, which we publish every Wednesday on the YouTube channel. Remember that our nutritional advice is at your disposal. Thank you for your attention and for staying until the end. A big hug and keep empowering.